Good day and welcome to your NEWSMAX Daily for Thursday, May 9th, 2024, the 130th day of the year. It's the second of 5 Thursdays this month, and for Christians around the world, today is Ascension Day, commemorating and celebrating Jesus Christ's ascent into heaven 40 days after Easter Sunday. The Protestant Church celebrates Ascension on the 6th Sunday of the Easter season, which will be this Sunday. And heads up, by the way, this Sunday, May 12th, is also Mother's Day. So make certain that you have some plans to spend some time with your mom. In the news today, former President Donald Trump is back in New York as his trial resumes after yesterday's break. Marjorie Taylor Greene moves to vacate House Speaker Mike Johnson. The WNBA champion Las Vegas Aces are visiting the White House today. And as I mentioned yesterday at the end of the daily, the Biden administration's decision to, as they said, pause a scheduled shipment of U.S. arms to Israel. First up, Rob Finnerty and Charlotte McBride on this morning's Wake Up America.
First to Israel. In the latest threat from the White House, President Biden is forcing Israel to choose between destroying Hamas or receiving U.S. military support.
Yeah, quite the turn of events yesterday. NEWSMAX correspondent Daniel Cohen is standing by live in Tel Aviv with reaction to that. Daniel, good morning.
Good morning, Rob and Charlotte. Good morning, everyone. President Biden is siding with Hamas over Israel. There's no other way to see it. That is the reaction from former U.S. Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, who helped President Trump broker the Abraham Accords and move the American embassy to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. Here's Joe Biden one day after saying his support for Israel is ironclad.
They go into Rafah. I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah, to deal with the cities, to deal with that problem. It's just wrong. We're not going to supply the weapons and the artillery shells used that have been used.
Artillery shells as well.
Yeah.
The president's statement coming hours after the Pentagon confirmed the U.S. is withholding offensive weaponry, and also a day after Biden spoke on Capitol Hill for remembrance of the Holocaust, when 6 million defenseless Jews were slaughtered. The president claims his administration isn't walking away from Israel, despite threatening Netanyahu with the State of the Union, remember the Come to Jesus meeting, and calls from Nancy Pelosi for Netanyahu to resign. In March, Chuck Schumer, who is Jewish, called for the toppling of the Israeli government. Here's Schumer when asked point blank Wednesday if it's appropriate to withhold congressionally approved support from one of our most important allies.
I believe that Israel and America have an ironclad relationship, and I have faith in what the Biden administration is doing.
Schumer scampered away from the camera, saying he has faith in Biden, but a cascade of Republicans in the House and Senate, along with Pennsylvania Democrat John Fetterman, whose unwavering support for Israel has been a revelation. He blasted the president. Fetterman said about Biden's ultimatum, and I quote, "hard disagree and deeply disappointing." Netanyahu hasn't responded, but Israel's ambassador to the UN, he did. He says American Jews are now, and I quote, hesitant to vote Democrat. Rob, Charlotte, President Trump put it more bluntly in a post on Truth Social, saying Crooked Joe is taking the sides of these terrorists, referring to Hamas, and that Biden is weak, corrupt, and leading the world straight into World War III.
That's NEWSMAX Jerusalem correspondent Daniel Cohen, the very sharp-dressed Daniel Cohen when you see him on TV. Live from Tel Aviv on Wake Up America. This is Chief White House Correspondent James Rosen on the North Lawn.
Good afternoon, James.
Good afternoon to you both. With these latest statements from officials serving under President Biden and serving too under the strain of the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza, today marks assuredly the low point in the modern history of American-Israeli bilateral relations. For his part, President Biden was in Racine, Wisconsin today, touting investments by Microsoft before taking part in a private campaign event. Minutes after the president finished speaking, State Department spokesman Matthew Miller announced that the administration needed a brief delay before submitting its report to Congress, which was due today, on whether the Israelis have used American arms lawfully. Miller said to expect the submission, quote, in coming days. He also confirmed published reports, which had appeared first in Axios, that the Biden administration has already begun withholding arms shipments from the Israelis.
We have very serious concerns about a potential Rafah operation. We have concerns about what that would mean for the civilian population there when you look at the fact that there are so many people crowded into such a small area, when you look at the way Israel has conducted its operations in the past and what the impact on the civilian population has been. And we also have concerns about the impact of any potential operation on the delivery of humanitarian assistance. So we have paused one shipment of near-term assistance, and we are reviewing others. But that said, our long-term commitment to Israel's security has not changed.
Such halts in U.S. arms shipments to Israel are exceedingly rare. This reporter made use of the online database newspapers.com, which presents almost 1 billion pages of newspapers scanned into the system dating back to the 18th century, and found, using the familiar search terms you'd expect, only 2 instances. One in 1955, the Eisenhower era, which followed an Israeli incursion into Syria at that time that killed 49 people, and then twice in 1 year in 1982 under the Reagan administration following Israel's incursion into Lebanon. Back to you guys in New York.
NEWSMAX chief White House correspondent James Rosen. Georgia Congressman Rich McCormick and others weighed in on National Report with Sean Kreisman.
Congressman McCormick, the pause on the shipments of bombs to Israel from the U.S. has been confirmed. Moving past the munitions not being sent to Israel, again, with their war against Hamas, what, in terms of the messaging, what message does that send to these proxy groups, to Hamas, to Hezbollah, to, again, even Iran, who's been accused of funding these proxy groups? You see the United States, the biggest ally of Israel here, pausing shipments of bombs to Israel during a war. Does that send a poor message to Iran and others?
It says to everybody that if your propaganda is good enough, if you can convince people when you use human shields, innocent lives, to defend your cause, the United States will back down, that we won't do the right thing, that we won't support our allies. We know for a fact that Iran continues to fund Hamas and other terrorist groups around the world. Nobody's doing anything about that. You see the administration has basically backed down on everything that Iran has done against us, has helped them fund their cause of terror against us, and yet they won't stand with our allies, somebody who stood with us all along, the one stabilizing factor in that region. That's ridiculous. That's bad foreign policy. I make the case that Biden has the worst foreign policy of all time, of all presidents in the United States.
President Biden has the worst foreign policy of all time of all presidents in the United States. That's Georgia Congressman and decorated veteran Rich McCormick on NEWSMAX. And McCormick wasn't that happy with his Georgia congressional colleague Marjorie Taylor Greene's move to vacate House Speaker Mike Johnson yesterday.
Would you agree with that? Would you have a message for the Congresswoman?
It's not realistic that one person gets to set and dictate what everybody has to vote on. We have 435 members. The Speaker has to do what he thinks is best, and it shouldn't be held hostage by one member or even 2 members. She continues to be on an island. She's disruptive. She thinks that her way or the highway, it's a populist movement. It's not a conservative movement. It's not good for the party. As a matter of fact, if you think about it in sporting terms, I've been playing sports all my life. You're in the Super Bowl. You just replaced your seasoned quarterback with a rookie quarterback, and you're trying to move down the field and get scores, and you have one of the members of the team trying to tackle your quarterback. That's what's happening. Somebody who's disrupting everything we're trying to get done. That's not serious legislation. That's disruptive to everything we're trying to achieve, which, of course, the most important part is winning the future election so we can get back the Senate, get the presidency back, and actually get some work done.
You may or may not agree with Congressman McCormick's assessment there, and I don't need any negativity on X or anywhere else. Yesterday, people complaining about the Kristi Noem interview by Eric Bolling. People also complained, of course, to Eric Bolling, but I remind you, it is just my job to bring you the news. Whether you like it or not, it's the news. But Marjorie Taylor Greene's motion was not that well received in the chamber.
Declaring the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives to be vacant. Mike Johnson is ill-equipped to handle the rigors of the job of Speaker of the House and has allowed a uniparty, one that fuels foreign wars, tramples on civil liberties, and increases our disastrous national debt.
This is what House Speaker Mike Johnson had to say about it.
I appreciate the show of confidence from my colleagues to defeat this misguided effort. That is certainly what it was. They made their voices heard on the motion to vacate matter, and now we have very important work to do for the country. There are a lot of things to fix.
Former President Donald Trump, who MTG obviously is a big supporter of, has basically given his stamp of approval to Speaker Johnson, at least for now, right? Trump's trial in New York, which resumed today, of course, continues to dominate the news cycle. Former Trump advisor and NEWSMAX host Sebestian Gorka.
Look, what happened on Monday? President Trump was fined for the 10th time, told to shut up. You don't have any First Amendment rights. Who do you think you are? And then right afterwards at 4:20 outside the court, he said, well, yeah, this judge is corrupt. This other Biden case. I mean, he is daring the left. Let me just say one thing right now, live on NEWSMAX. He is daring the left. That includes Merchan, Bragg, Letitia James, and Biden, and Merrick Garland, and Colangelo, to put him in prison. And if they do, he's won. If they put him, even if it's for, 24 hours in contempt of court in prison, that's it. That man will have the sympathy of even Democrat voters who realize we are living in a complete banana republic. So bring it, Judge Merchan, because I think President Trump is ready.
That's my man, Sebestian Gorka, host of the Gorka Reality Check Sunday afternoons on NEWSMAX. It actually runs twice on Sundays. Check it out. Political analyst Mark Halperin says it's a case of Trump derangement syndrome.
Your take on how the media is still spinning this criminal case against Trump versus the option here, Joe Biden, right now?
It'd be interesting as a counterfactual. I don't think it would happen if Joe Biden or Jen Psaki or someone on the Democratic would say, you know what, I've listened to the legal analysts, I've looked at it. This case is a joke. We shouldn't be using this case to determine who wins the presidency. The case should be dismissed, or the jury should reach a not guilty verdict, and then let's debate the issues. They won't do that because Trump derangement syndrome requires them to look at anything negative that could potentially hurt Donald Trump as their great salvation.
Well, Joe Biden's got a lot of issues. Clearly he's talking about investing in America, not so much investing in Israel, holding back some arms and some bombs. We're going to get into that a little later. That's a problem for his campaign. So is the campus unrest.
That's NEWSMAX host Bianca De La Garza with political analyst Mark Halperin. President Trump did score 2 legal victories this week, though, with Judge Cannon delaying the documents case indefinitely. We talked about that yesterday. And an appeals court in Georgia yesterday agreed to consider Trump's appeal of the disqualification matter related to Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, related to her relationship with the prosecutor Nathan Wade. And let's go back to President Biden for a moment. Right? We already talked about the whole Israel arms thing. Do not forget about the border. Don't let all of this crap take your attention off of the border. We are not hearing enough about the border. Every single day that goes by, thousands of people, many of them dangerous or with ill intentions, come into the country. And I'm not going to get into this whole thing now, but do a couple of Google searches on the city of Denver, okay? The city is being completely overrun by encampments of illegal migrants who are now demanding food, more food, better food, and shelter. It's insanity. And it's all on the Biden administration. Then we have the economy, which Biden apparently thinks is just fine. In an interview with CNN yesterday while he was in Wisconsin, Erin Burnett, who was an anchor on CNBC for years before she went to CNN, is very well versed in economics.
When you talk about the economy, of course, it is by far the most important issue for voters. It's also true right now, Mr. President, that voters by a wide margin trust Trump more on the economy. They say that in polls. And part of the reason for that may be the numbers. And you're aware of many of these, of course. The cost of buying a home in the United States is double what it was when you look at your monthly costs from before the pandemic. Real income, when you account for inflation, is actually down since you took office. Economic growth last week, far short of expectations. Consumer confidence, maybe no surprise, is near a 2-year low. With less than 6 months to go to Election Day, are you worried that you're running out of time to turn that around?
We've already turned it around. Look at the Michigan survey. For 65% of American people think they're in good shape economically. They think the nation's not in good shape, but they're personally in good shape. The polling data has been wrong all along. You know, how many, you guys do a poll at CNN, how many folks you have to call to get one response? The idea that we're in a situation where things are so bad, the folks that, I mean, we've created more jobs.
We already turned it around, or we already did. We already turned it around. Yeah, they created record jobs after creating record job losses. And that's all the administration talks about. A lot of people are now working 2 jobs. In fact, consumer sentiment, yes, it is surprisingly high, but 40% of Americans are struggling to put meals on the table and have credit card debt up the wazoo. And those 40% don't care about the 60% that are supposedly content with the way things are. I mentioned the WNBA at the White House today. Can't wait to hear some of the comments from President Biden and Vice President Harris at that ceremony. Then the president is headed to San Francisco ahead of some events tomorrow. And a quick side note, General Motors has announced that after 60 years, it is going to stop making the very popular Chevy Malibu model. You may own one now. You may have owned one in the past. Your parents may have owned one, your aunts and uncles. It's one of the best-selling vehicles in America. And they're going to start making more EVs, even though EVs aren't selling. The company that was saved by your tax dollars is going to invest at least $390 million in one of its EV plants, which is eventually going to lead to some layoffs. This is from the General Motors statement. They're going to stop making a product that sells. Forget that it's a vehicle, could be any product there, okay? They're going to stop making a fantastic widget, spend $390 million that they don't have to spend to make a less favorable product at the expense of people's jobs. Makes absolutely no sense. I'm shorting GM stock as soon as I'm done with the podcast. No buy, sell, or hold recommendation. Keep up with all of the news all day and night on Newsmax. It is available on most major cable systems, as you know, AT&T, Comcast, Cox Cable, Mediacom, Optimum, Spectrum, Xfinity, as well as Dish, DirecTV, and many others. And make sure you're streaming on the new Newsmax Plus. If you're not, simply go to NewsmaxPlus.com and get signed up. You can also get a free trial. It includes all of your favorite shows and hosts with great analysis from people like Governor Mike Huckabee, former acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker, Professor Alan Dershowitz, Judge Napolitano, and many others. Special programs, documentaries, and more, NewsmaxPlus.com. Get signed up. This is the Newsmax Daily. Thank you for listening. I'm Tony Marino. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, Ascension Thursday, and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the NewsMax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
It's our America. We conquered it. We built it. Great values like honesty and fairness. Great courage. A great nation needs a free press. Newsmax is it. 30 million Americans regularly go to Newsmax when they really need to know. They watch Newsmax TV at home. On the free Newsmax app, they go to Newsmax.com. Start today. Newsmax is real news for real people.